All right, it's Super Bowl week. A great place to enjoy the Super Bowl is Martin's in Livingston and Martin's downtown. They know how to throw a party. Wings, gumbo, and they're smoking a pig both spots. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Martin's in Livingston, Martin's downtown. Super Bowl week. Wings and Stella Artois. That is a winning combo. We welcome in Mike Detillier on ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Sound and Communications. If you need a video wall for your business, your hotel, your lobby, your hospital, your school, university, it's powered by Sound and Communications. SoundComAV.com. SoundComAV.com. We welcome in Mike Detillier on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And Mike D, before I get into the Super Bowl, it's also Hall of Fame week where we'll know who's getting in on Thursday night. And last week it broke that Bill Belichick was not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer and he's the GOAT. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was generally surprised. I thought Bill would get in. You just look at his resume. I mean, it speaks for itself. There are people that are voting, and it has become petty with him. Maybe Bill didn't treat him right at a press conference, and he is snarky. So you got to accept that. The Spygate and all that, I think that's a minor deal. I think for some of them, I think it's just how maybe he reacted and everything, and you add everything up, that you can see why a few would vote against him. But I didn't think you'd have that many. I knew the Spygate might affect a couple votes, but I never thought that he wouldn't get in. His resume speaks for itself. And if you think he's the only one that pulls some of this off, you are living in La La Land. Okay? A lot of coaches have tried this before. Jimmy Johnson has admitted it.
Yeah.
That, they tried to do the exact sort of things. With things. But again, you always going to have that label. And really, Kraft not getting in is the other part. Because I thought that one of the two would get in. I thought it would always be Belichick. But neither one getting in. So that's a bit of a surprise to me because, again, you just look at what they've accomplished in a new world of football, ever-changing world, free agency, commuter world of coaches and players. To win with Belichick won is, to me, we're not going to see it again. If you're listening, you're not going to see it again in your lifetime.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Who are the slam dunks? Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald, or what do you think?
Listen, I was shocked last year Luke Kuechly didn't get in. I really think I know his time in the NFL was short in comparison to some. Luke Kuechly was the best inside linebacker in the game. We have Drew Brees on weekly. I asked him about it. He was like, he's the toughest player on defense I ever had to go against. And he recalled a few stories come up to the line of scrimmage, and Kuechly is barking the play back to him. He knew exactly what they were going to do. He was like, never had that before. That's a new one. So I do suspect that Drew Fitzgerald, Kuechly's got to go in this year. As far as I'm concerned, he's got to go in. And I look at the whole deal, for me, Roger Craig, as an older candidate coming in. Roger Craig, playing for the 49ers, his all-purpose skills, what he was able to do as a runner receiver in that offense was really at the highest level. He got overshadowed because of, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. And that defense was badass too now. But Roger Craig, I think, gets in the the dimensions. If Kraft and Belichick then will get in, I think Craig's got enough votes that he should get in. So I think the three slam dunks for me, though, would be Luke Kuechly, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald.
Okay. Man, Roger Craig was one of my favorite players in the 80s. And you're right. He was because Walsh was so ahead of his time, there was still a lot of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, as you know, Mike D. But man, Roger Craig was special. And you only got so many touches in that offense with Jerry Rice and Taylor and Dwight Clark and just everything that they were doing. And they didn't run as many plays, but golly, you feel like he'll get in. Is it Thursday night they knock on the doors or whatever they do?
Yeah, they knock on that door and let you know you're coming in there. So, it's man, I think about that offense and think about a guy who played at Ole Miss, also played with the Saints, and they couldn't find enough footballs to get it to
Wesley Walls.
Yeah. Think what Wesley did with the Saints and then with the Panthers, how good of a tight end he was in this league. You sort of run out, of options at that particular point with the 49ers. But they were so good. And if anybody has seen the AMC documentaries, I think it's a 4 1-hour series on how the 49ers were built. You don't have to be a 49er fan to watch it, but it is really insightful on how Eddie DeBartolo Jr. buys this team. They were sort of flatlined at that point because of the fact they didn't have a lot of big-time players left. And they had given up so much capital to trade for O.J. Simpson. They wanted O.J. back in the Bay Area. And at this point in time, Simpson as a player was really in the winter years of his playing career. The knee injuries, the legs had sort of went south with him. And how they were able to rebuild that. And for most people, they think the first couple of Super Bowls, was Jerry Rice and Montana and Craig. And that first Super Bowl, Joe was there, but they won with Dwight Clark, Freddie Solomon, Charles Tree Young, their defense, Jack Reynolds at the back end of his career as a football player. Went to show the genius of Walsh and how he was able to draft so well. I think you take out of the 80s of how the 49ers were built, it was really Bill Walsh's, not only his ability to coach, but his ability to spot players that would fit into what he could run offensively and defensively. And it's just spectacular. So if anybody gets a chance to watch that documentary on AMC on how the 49ers were built, it is really worth watching. And just draft choice after draft choice, he was able to hit on for them to find Charles Haley. He wasn't a major college guy. Ronnie Lott was also a great pick for them. And I always say this because I saw Ed Reed from his high school days. He played at Destrehan, which is right up the road from where I live, and then goes to Miami, signature player, one of the great free safeties of all time, Ronnie Lott, in my opinion, because it was the start of a lot of offensive stars in the NFL. They did have Lawrence Taylor and Reggie White, but Ronnie Lott, for me, goes down as one of the most underrated superstars that has ever played the game because he was part of this juggernaut offense built by Walsh. And, the defense sort of got overshadowed there of how good they were. And, and working with Bobby, Hebert always says that, Mike, you better strap it on when you played them because they were going to beat you up and they were physical. And he said, they were either 1-2 on offense, but they had a top 4 defense every time we played them. So he said, it was not like they had a crack in the vase. You were in there in a fist fight with them each and every time you had to play them because they didn't have a lot of weaknesses on either side. And you coach, you got Walsh coaching that and making the play calls and what Bill was able to do in putting in that offense that he learned from Paul Brown. It was not the Paul Brown that had run the Cleveland Browns, because that team, when Coach Brown was running it, was basically in charge of everything until Art Modell took over and bought the team. And then, adios, both Paul Brown and Jim Brown. Because once you made the deal to Jim, you come back from, filming The Dirty Dozen in Europe, or, we're going to find you. And Jim was, yeah, you can find me all you want. I'm in the movie business now. I ain't playing no more. He kind of flung him the middle finger that, hey, you're not going to intimidate me with that. And so, but when Brown came back after a hiatus from being fired in Cleveland, came back and ran Cincinnati Bengals. For him to be competitive, he put in that West Coast offense, and Bill was the student. And man, did he learn good. And he was just unique. But I think what gets overlooked is his ability to spot talent.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, and it's even today you can say the same thing, Bo. When a coach can coach, there's a lot of guys, they know X's and O's. For them to spot the talent that'll fit what they do, a lot of times it's not a good fit. Walsh, Jimmy Johnson, they did it at the highest level.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, joining us on the Out of Bounds show. Okay, with Drew, you got to see him from day one till the end with the Saints. And I'm not sure he'll ever get the credit he deserves, because there was so much oxygen. There's only so much oxygen in the room. And he played while a big bulk of it was while Peyton and Brady and a couple others, Roethlisberger, Rodgers, were playing. And the Saints are a small market, but no doubt they were rolling and winning under Sean and Drew. How much do you think what might have for him is what might have been if Sean doesn't lose his mind after winning the Super Bowl, Mike?
Because they work together so well. That was something, Bo, I wasn't sure. Because we had been told, Coach Peyton, he's going to be the taskmaster here. He's going to lay down the hammer. And we didn't know, because they were both the same sort of personalities. Drew does it in a more subtle way. And, he's made the comment, well, I think it was last week when I had him on. He made the comment, I put a zillion times more pressure on me than any fan could ever do, than any broadcaster could ever do. I put it on me, because I wanted to excel at the highest level. And he says, but pretty quickly in this league that nothing's fair. And sometimes things don't go your way. And you gotta be able to fight through it. He had some opportunities. And I understand 2011 to me was the biggest disappointment, because they exceeded things that the greatest show on turf with the Rams had done. And they played that crazy game in San Francisco, and the lead changed hands 4 times in the final 5 minutes of that game. They were trailing by 17 at one time. They had 5 turnovers in that game, and with a little over 2 minutes left, the Saints had the lead. And I'm like, so someone sort of pinched me here. How can you be ahead when virtually everything had went wrong, but Breeze found a way? And then Alex Smith puts on the show at the end. And He would get that touchdown late, end up winning against the Saints. That to me was the biggest disappointment. The Rams game, certainly the Nola no call and everything else, but that 2011 team, I thought was the best Saints team I had ever seen. The way they could put points on the board, they were a good team on defense. They were not a great defensive team, but they were good. But they were unbelievable on offense. It just sort of the cards weren't right. And you think about the guys that didn't win a Super Bowl, like Dan Fouts, Dan Marino.
Warren Moon was incredible, maybe the most underrated ever.
Not being able to do it. And always say about people say, well, man, just getting to the Super Bowl is the big thing. And old buddy Jake Delhomme always has to comment. Anybody that tells you that ain't never played, because he got the Panthers there to the Super Bowl, and they had a lead late, and then John Casey on the kickoff kicks one out of bounds. And, okay, he's like, at that time, Vinatieri, okay, you didn't need to get him too many yards. The ball's at the 40-yard line at this point. And, like you said, Brady hits a couple passes, sets up Vinatieri, game-winning field goal. But he said, I went to leave because I didn't want to watch. And he said, I stopped myself. I got and I stepped back on the field. I wanted to see how the Patriots were celebrating. I wanted to see that. And he said, you know what? Next year, we're going to be back. He said, Mike, I'm still waiting. I never been back. He says, that point about getting there is great, but it's about winning it when you're there. And the fact that Drew was able to win it in that era where Manning, Brady dominated, and the fact that he was on a team that beat Peyton Manning and the Colts to win it, and in 2019, had they been able to win against the Rams, he would have went up against Brady. And
right.
In 2011, just think the Giants win there and had that opportunity. But, it was a crazy thing because that year during the regular season in 2011, they beat the holy hell out of the Giants in the regular season. And they end up, going to play on Super Bowl Sunday.
Crazy. Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show. Speaking of the Super Bowl, Seahawks, Patriots, San Francisco Bay Area, Santa Clara. Who do you like and why?
I like Seattle. I think they've been since maybe the first 3 or 4 games, because I think in this league, the way they play preseason, you really can't tell. You really can't. But after 3 or 4 games into the season, you could see they were super talented. And their defense, other than playing the Rams, they've been lights out. They don't match up against the Rams very well. Now, not most teams do, but they haven't. They haven't been able to slow down the Rams very well. But they so diversified on offense, too, with the running game, with Kenneth Walker. Their left side of their offensive line is really good. Gray Zabel, I think, is a young star at left guard. We all saw Charles Cross at Mississippi State. He's a tremendous left tackle. And they run a lot of plays toward the left. And people say, well, that's how they figure Kubiak does it. No, it's because you got Gray Zabel and Charles Cross. That's why you're running it left. We're not splitting the atom here. But I just think they're the better team. I'm really impressed at what New England's been able to do all year. They're underrated on defense. You can't say there's a superstar for them on the defensive side of the ball. But they play hellish defense. And the one thing that concerns me in playoff time, Drake May, who was great in the regular season, has not played at a high level. And Sam Darnold has. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here over New England.
Seahawks, man, that'd be crazy. What a story for Mike McDonald, and like Mike D said, Sam Darnold, and it's great to see Charles Cross play so well out there, and Vrabel's a hell of a story too. Can't believe the Titans let him go a few years ago. All right, so Mike D
and the two rookies for Seattle, Gray Zabel at left guard, Nick Emenwari, who is sort of a hybrid linebacker safety for them. Man, those two guys, they play like they've been playing this league like 6-8 years. And they all over the field. And they're one of the few teams in this league that can rush just 4 and drop 7 in coverage. A lot of times, Bo, when you see teams getting pressure, it's because they're sending extra people. Seattle doesn't have to do that. They can get pressure with 4 and drop 7 in coverage. So now you're having to throw through sort of the branches in the tree to downfield. It becomes really, really difficult. Then you add the element on special teams of Rashid Shaheed. And my thing is, if I'm Grable, I tell this to my kickers. If any of y'all kick it to him, you walking back home.
Yeah.
You are not, listen, you cannot give him that opportunity. And he's one of the fastest players I've seen in this league today with a helmet and pads on. Because a lot of guys are fast just running, like a track. He's fast with a helmet and pads on. And so we had practice, this was 2 years ago. And, I mean, we standing up, and you could almost like feel the wind when he passed us. That's how fast he is out on the field. I mean, he just blew by the defensive back. His speed is unique, and he's got the ability to make people miss in space. He's never going to be a number 1 and receiver. He'll be a number 2 or 3 for most teams wherever he ends up. Man, his impact, he scares you as a return man. And the 49ers were dumb enough to kick it to him. And they found out real quick. You don't do that, you're going to pay the price if you kick it to him.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds Show, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Thanks, Mike D. Have a great week, bud.
Thank you, Bo.
He's the best. Brought to you by Sound and Communications. Do you need a video wall for your CPA or law firm, hospital, school, lobby, university? Soundcom AV. That stands for audiovisual. Soundcomav.com. Call Sound and Communications today if you need a video wall for your business or school or church. Show is also brought to you by Matt Anderson at Southeastern Land Group. Looking for your next property, whether it's hunting land, timber investment, or waterfront gateway. Matt Anderson at Southeastern Land Group.